This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, as always, on the Sunday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. I am your host, Josh Strickland, and what a crazy week in sports this week. You have NFL playoffs coming today that we'll talk about. You had the MLB scandal that happened. You got Conor McGregor and UFC that happened last night. And then you also have LSU. Everything going on with LSU this week, including winning the national championship, but also losing pretty much every key piece that got them to win the national championship. But first, we're going to talk about the NFL playoff games. It's Championship Sunday. These games are playing today, so let's jump right in. We're going to start with the AFC. We're going to start with the Tennessee Titans versus the Kansas City Chiefs. They're playing at 3:05 p.m. today on CBS. So let's just get right into it. So the Titans, nobody expected the Titans to be here at all. They played, they've had a pretty rough playoff schedule so far this year. They played the New England Patriots, which nobody thought they would win, because it's the Patriots. But, I mean, in hindsight, that's not a tough matchup at all. But it's the Patriots, so nobody expected them to win that one. And Ryan Tannehill threw only like 78 yards, but Derrick Henry almost got 200 rushing yards. So, you know, it evened out. Then they went on to play the Baltimore Ravens, the hottest team in the NFL at the time, with Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram coming back from injury. It seemed like the Titans had no chance at beating the Baltimore Ravens. But then their defense completely stifles the Ravens. And I say stifle very loosely because the Ravens still got over 500 yards of offense. But they had two key turnovers that helped out with the victory there. So they upsetted the Ravens out of nowhere. And now we're kind of sitting in a similar situation where they're playing a team that no one thinks they can beat, playing a quarterback that is better than Ryan Tannehill and will probably have a much better performance than Ryan Tannehill. But you can't just... But after the past 2 weeks, I can't really automatically give this to Kansas City anymore. So, I do believe Kansas City has the better team, but based off this entire playoffs, I can't really count out the Titans at this point. The Titans defense has really shown up to play. Ryan Tannehill makes no mistakes. He's managing the game as well as you can if you're Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill won Comeback Player of the Year and Most Improved Player of the Year, which, interesting how you can win both, I guess. And then Derrick Henry, of course. Derrick Henry, former Heisman winner, is destroying people right now. Like, you can't tackle him at the moment. He had almost 200 yards against New England. He had 190 yards or something like that against the Ravens. And, of course, they're going to use him heavily against the Chiefs. So, for the Chiefs, defensively, your main goal is to stop Derrick Henry. And that's not the only goal they have, but I mean, that's the main goal at the moment. Because Ryan Tannehill, he has won the last 2 playoff games. And I say won loosely because, you know, it's a team sport. Quarterbacks don't dictate everything, as you can tell from the Titans this year. Ryan Tannehill was held to under 100 passing yards in each of those playoff wins. Well, Derrick Henry got over 175 rushing yards in each of them. So I think the main thing for the Chiefs to do is to stop Derrick Henry and make them throw the ball more. because there's got to be a reason that they're not throwing the ball as much as other teams are. But so here's a quick quarterback comparison. Of course, you have Patrick Mahomes, who is the not necessarily new kid on the block, because Lamar Jackson is technically the new kid on the block now, but you got Patrick Mahomes, who's got over 4,000 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Compare that to Ryan Tannehill, who has 2,742 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. So touchdowns are kind of similar, but the yards are completely different. You move on to the Kansas City Chiefs, who had a bye in the first week of the playoffs because they are 12-4, and they earned that bye because the Patriots lost to the Miami Dolphins in the last week of the playoffs. I mean, the last week of the regular season. So then Kansas City goes against Houston Texans, facing Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, and a pretty okay Texans defense. And they go in, and they're down 24-0 at the start of the first quarter, at the end of the first quarter. So all is looking lost. Looks like another Andy Reid bust of a season, as they're down 24-0. But you can't really count out a team after just the first quarter, you know? So especially a team with Patrick Mahomes and a team with Travis Kelce and stuff like, and yeah, and also they have LaShawn McCoy and stuff like that. So you can't really count them out in that situation. And of course they came back, they scored 48 unanswered points, won the game big time, 51-31, I believe, won by 20 points. So Kansas City's coming in here with a little momentum going. Now, you do have the whole Andy Reid issue, and I call it an issue for no reason, actually. So Andy Reid is a fantastic coach. He's a fantastic offensive coach, offensive mind. He's been in the league for 20 plus years. He's made the playoffs like 15,000 times. His team's always competitive, always up there. One in Philly with Donovan McNabb, one in Kansas City, as you can see, obviously, with Patrick Mahomes so I'm blanking on the last guy's name. So he's known to win. He wins. But his big issue is he's been in the playoffs like 10 plus times, made it to the Super Bowl once with Philadelphia, and he made it to the AFC Championship game or NFC Championship game plenty of times as well, but he can never pull it out. He can never win the big one, and I hate that because I love Andy Reid. He's a hilarious dude. He seems super like a super nice guy, and he's a great football mind, as I mentioned. But he has an issue with winning, with getting his team to win these big games. And it's not even like they lose close games. It's just sometimes their teams come out flat. And it kind of looked like that last week when they were down 24-0 to the Texans. And I want Andy Reid to win, but it would be the most Andy Reid thing to do to lose the Tennessee Titans in the AFC Championship game. Can you imagine when you have, on the other side, you have the 49ers and the Packers with Aaron Rodgers and then Jimmy Garoppolo and the great defense that the 49ers have, and they have to play the Titans instead of the Chiefs. No offense to Titans, of course. It just seems like that's the least interesting outcome. Now, I did say last week that the Titans have the best story in the playoffs, but just because you have the best story doesn't mean you're the most entertaining football team. They have the best story just because they've upset people. And I mean, if they keep it running, because at the end of the day, to win Super Bowl, you just gotta have a 4-game win streak. You just gotta make the playoffs and win 4 games. And the Titans are on a 2-game win streak right now against 2 teams that they should not beat. So the line is Kansas City 7. I'll probably take that. I think Kansas City will win by 10. Hopefully the Titans don't blow them out and win by 16 or whatever again, like they did against the Ravens, because I did choose the Ravens to win by 10 or more again. But I think the Chiefs have a better offense. I think the Chiefs can pull out the win. I don't know if they can stop Derrick Henry, though. Like I said, that's the main thing for the Chiefs defense, but we'll see. We'll see on that. So on the other side, we'll be talking about Green Bay and San Francisco, the NFC Championship game. So stay tuned, and we will be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
To the boring side of the bracket, or depending on, or more exciting depending on who you're talking to. I call it boring because it's kind of chalk. You got the Green Bay Packers, who had the bye week, against the San Francisco 49ers, who also had the bye week. The 1 and 2 seeds in the NFC are facing off against each other, so it's kind of boring in that sense. This is going to be on 6:40 p.m. on Fox. So of course, you have the Packers with Aaron Rodgers. Packers last week played the Seahawks, and they won pretty handily. I mean, some people say it was a close matchup. I didn't. I mean, they were kind of ahead for most of the game, and the Seahawks almost had a comeback because, of course, they did. They have Russell Wilson, who is the comeback master over there. Then you have San Francisco 49ers, who won handedly last week as well. So this is an interesting game. Both teams have pretty good offenses. The Packers kind of have this renaissance at offense because of the new coach, Matt LaFleur, and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, kind of back to his old ways. He's got 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on the year. Jimmy Garoppolo, for comparison, has 3,978 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. Green Bay is definitely running the ball more, as Aaron Jones has over 1,000 yards rushing and 16 rushing touchdowns. So Green Bay seems to learn from their mistakes, because under McCarthy, it seemed like they never ran the ball. They just kind of forced Rodgers to throw a billion times a game, and it just wasn't working. Aaron Rodgers didn't think it was working. The Packers organization didn't think it was working, and now Mike McCarthy is working in Dallas. So the 49ers, on the other hand, their offense seems impenetrable. They have George Kittle, who can do everything. He can block the big dudes up front, but he can also slip off and be an athletic tight end. It's kind of crazy that he can do both. He's basically like Gronk, except he can block better. So George Kittle is an insane weapon for the 49ers to have, and whenever he's not on the field, it's kind of Jimmy Garoppolo is just kind of like, oh no, where's my guy? So George Kittle, of course, with 85 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So what I've noticed is that the 49ers' big weakness is kind of Jimmy Garoppolo. Like I said, he almost has 4,000 passing yards, so that's not really saying much. But Jimmy Garoppolo does have 13 interceptions on the year, which I think is the most out of the rest of the dudes in the playoffs right now, as Tannehill only had like 6, and Patrick Mahomes had 5, and then Rodgers has 4. So Garoppolo's kind of turnover prone. He seems to be the weakness of the offense. He seems to sometimes make mistakes or sometimes make some bad throws that kind of end drives early. So I think the Packers, all they got to do is just get pressure on him, force him to make some mistakes, and then hopefully Packers defense can capitalize on those mistakes. So that's the main thing for Green Bay there, or Green Bay's defense there. Green Bay's defense is overhauled. They got a bunch of new pieces this year. They kind of rebuilt that whole defense in one offseason, which was very impressive, actually. So this Green Bay defense is ready for this challenge. Like I said, George Kittle, Mostert, and Garoppolo, it's a good team. And then you got Deebo Samuel, who's going to be all over the field. Deebo Samuel, who can play wide receiver, he can play running back, he's going to be punt returner, he's going to be kickoff return. He's a versatile player, and he's going to do bad things if you don't expect him to. So Deebo Samuel is a good start, but of course Green Bay, they have Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers looked okay against Seattle last week, but it's still Aaron Rodgers. You can't really count Aaron Rodgers out no matter who they play. So it's going to be interesting. But that 49ers defense, however, the big story for the 49ers is the defense with Nick Bosa. And is it Nick or Joey? I think it's Nick. But with Nick Bosa. So that defense for the 49ers is killer. So first off, the 49ers are averaging only 10 points allowed per game, which is insane. Compare that to the Packers. Their Packers defense is allowing 23 points per game. So I think it's going to be pretty high scoring for the 49ers here. And then yards allowed. 49ers average 193 yards allowed. So this defense is insane. They kind of made Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings look terrible last week, as they just kind of they thrashed them with 27-10. Kirk Cousins couldn't do anything against this defense. Aaron Rodgers, like I said, is a different beast, so we don't know. I think it's kind of funny that both teams played the other team's division rivals last week, so we kind of get a nice comparison here. So, like I said, the Packers beat the Seahawks 28-23. 49ers, when they last played the Seahawks, they won 26-21, so it's kind of even there. And then last time the Packers played the Vikings, they won 23-10. 49ers won 27-10. So, I mean, based on past experiences, past games, this is going to be pretty even. Of course, transitive property doesn't work very well in football, so we'll see what the game actually turns out to be. One interesting thing that popped out to me was the 49ers have 0 injured players. This is a 49ers team that went 13-3 in the regular season. They're 6-2 at home. Fun fact, the Packers are 6-2 away. So the 49ers have 0 injured players coming into this game, which is insane for an NFL team to have no injured players going into the playoffs, even going into the championship game of the playoffs. Like, I mean, I've seen some teams have questionables. Like the Packers have 2 questionables right now, but they're J.K. Scott, their punter, and Danny Vitale, who is a fullback. So those are questionable, but are they really, though? So the 49ers have 0 injured players going into this, which is, like I said, already said, it's crazy. So this is a full strength 13-3 San Francisco 49ers. The Packers, on the other hand, are also pretty much a full strength, as I told you, as a fullback and a punter that are not completely ready to go, but they'll probably still play. I mean, J.K. Scott's a punter. I mean, he'll be all right. So both these teams are completely healthy going into this game, which is impressive to me. So I think this is going to be a really good game. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have his hands full with 49ers' hellacious defense. And then, of course, the San Francisco 49ers, I don't think they're going to have any problems on offense, to be honest. Jimmy Garoppolo might make a mistake here and there, but I do think the 49ers can win this handily. I think it's only going to be like a 7-point game, maybe like a 6-point game because of field goals. So I'm taking San Francisco. I'm taking Green Bay on the spread, though, as the spread is 7.5 for San Francisco. So I'm going to take the Green Bay on the spread here. But I really do think that the 49ers are going to stop Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to pull Aaron Rodgers stuff and score some points for the Green Bay Packers. He's going to make amazing plays out of nowhere. He's just going to pull them out of thin air. He's going to escape the pocket, not get sacked, and then chuck it 50 yards down the field without even trying, and then score a touchdown. So Aaron Rodgers will pull something out and keep Green Bay in this game. But for the majority of it, it's going to be San Francisco winning this game. I want to say handily. I did say it's a 6-point game, but I think it's going to be like a handedly 6-point game, like pretty much how the Seahawks were last week when they were just trying to come back against the Packers. Of course, they're going to come back and make it close because the Seahawks had Russell Wilson, whereas the Packers have Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers, just the presence of Aaron Rodgers is going to keep the Packers in this game. That might be overstating the power of Aaron Rodgers and the power of the starting quarterback in the NFL, of course, but that's just how I look at it. So we'll see what happens there. It's going to be a good game. This is the game of the day, honestly. The Titans Kansas City has the potential to be a good game, but just looking at stats and stuff, it doesn't look like it's going to be that good of a game. So Packers 49ers is the game of the day. So be sure to tune in. It's at 6:40. Pretty much, I hope Kansas City wins just because I think Kansas City versus the winner of this game would be a fantastic Super Bowl. Although, I'd rather it be the 49ers. But, all right. So, in our next segment, coming up, we will be continuing to talk about the baseball scandal with the Houston Astros, as there have been some updates, and the Astros had fan day yesterday, which was a terrible idea on their part, but I know it was scheduled way in advance, but we'll talk about it on the other side.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So, if you do not know, the Houston Astros are in huge trouble at the moment as they have been found to be cheating, sign stealing with electronics, with a video camera that was set up in center field, and then they banged a trash can for dear life to signal what pitch was coming, and then, but that's not all, of course. Alex Cora of the Red Sox, he got fired because he was the bench coach for the Astros in 2017, and also the Red Sox are under investigation as they won the World Series in 2018 with Alex Cora as the manager. Then you have Carlos Beltran, manager of the Mets. He newly fresh hired, fresh off the manager oven or whatever. New manager. He got fired after only a couple months because he was a player during the Astros. And there's some conjecture there. Some sources have said that Carlos Beltran said that he would be a distraction to the baseball team, so he would step down. Some things have said that the Mets just straight up fired him. And then you have Carlos Beltran's niece, and I say that with air quotes, as there's a Twitter account going around that claims to be Carlos Beltran's niece, and she said that she can't hold it anymore, that Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman and folks like that for the Astros wore electronic buzzers on their shoulders, and it would buzz, and someone would buzz it depending on what pitch it was, which that's a completely new thing. Then to back that claim up, there's videos on Twitter of Jose Altuve after he hit off a walk-off home run against Aroldis Chapman and the New York Yankees. After he hit a walk-off home run, he was telling his teammates not to take off the jersey, not to touch his jersey, and then he went into the dugout to change into a shirt privately instead of doing what normal baseball players have been doing, which is just changing in the field, because who cares? You're an athlete. Why are you ashamed of your body? So suspicious things are happening. Suspicious things are being found. People have been posting pictures of wrinkles in jerseys that look like buzzers with wires. People have been posting pictures of, I think it's Bregman. It might be Bregman or Reddick. Posting pictures of one of them with confetti on their chest, claiming it's tape, claiming that's where the wire was, that's where the buzzer is, when he did a live interview. I feel like some people are claiming they're stupid enough to do that. Just, it's kind of the general track of a conspiracy theory, because what happens with a conspiracy theory is you find the conclusion first, and then you find the clues. You go back and you find the clues, because now you have a conclusion to look for clues for. So that's how a conspiracy works. You come with a conclusion, and then you look back, and then you look for clues. The best instance is the Paul is dead theory for the Beatles. It's it's just something that someone made up, and then you go back and you look at like album covers, like Sgt. Pepper's. It looks like a funeral, so people are just like, "Oh, is it Paul's funeral?" And then you play a song backwards, and it sounds like he's saying Paul is dead and stuff like that. So you come up with a conclusion, and then you look back for clues, and that's pretty much what's going on right now. People are working backwards. It is insane that all of this is happening. If a buzzer is possible, I think it is possible. I mean, I don't know how that could have gotten away for so long. I feel like a catcher would have came out and said he heard a buzzing noise whenever Altuve or Bregman was up to bat. I feel like an umpire would hear a buzzing noise anytime something like that happened, unless it was just like a small buzz that like you could never hear or something, or people thought it was a mosquito or something, because baseball is played during the summer, so mosquitoes are prevalent. So the buzzer thing is interesting to me, because it seems so unlikely to happen. Now, to be fair, banging on a trash can is also unlikely, but that happened. I feel like that was more of there's a random banging sound. It might be something going on in the concourse or something, but it happened every Astros home game. So anyways, on Twitter, I haven't seen anybody defend them. I've seen people make the terrible claims that they should be stripped of their World Series title and World Series rings, or Jose Altuve and Bregman should be banned from baseball, which if the buzzer thing is true, then that could be a possibility, because that is just straight up despicable cheating. So stuff like that's going on. But the Houston Astros had a very well-timed fan day yesterday, Saturday. Very well-timed. It was perfectly timed. It was just in time for the team to be surrounded by news reporters to talk about only the upcoming season. They're not going to talk about anything other than the upcoming season. Of course, that is incorrect. So one thing stuck out to me. Jose Altuve, in his interview, he said that this isn't an issue. We plan on being in the World Series again, and we plan on winning the World Series in the upcoming year, which is crazy to me, because he's basically saying we're not worried about the biggest cheating scandal in baseball since 1919, since the Black Sox. We're not worried about the biggest cheating scandal in 100 years. We're going to win a World Series anyways. You guys can complain about this all you want. We're going to win a World Series again. So it's going to be very interesting to me. I'm very interested in how the MLB is going to police this, because I feel like the Astros are definitely going to have they're going to have all eyes on the Astros here during the season. So I don't know if they're going to have like metal detectors put in their dugout. I don't know if they're going to have someone in that video room at all times to make sure they're not banging on trash cans, which I think that's an easy solution to fix that. I don't know if they're going to make sure that the center field camera is not there. There's going to be high alert for the Astros. If the Astros start doing well, then you're going to see stuff like that happen. People are going to be skeptical of the Astros. People are going to be skeptical of Jose Altuve for the rest of their careers. Every single player that played for the Astros, everybody's going to be very skeptical of their careers from now on. And I hate that because I thought Jose Altuve was one of the best hitters in baseball. And, I mean, he could still be, but, I mean, he used the buzzer. And I'm seeing a lot of people that said, why does it matter? Why does it matter that they know... why does it matter if they have buzzers? Or why does it matter if they know the signs and stuff like that? Well, in baseball, one of the main advantages the pitchers have is that they can throw very hard, and it takes like a fraction of a second to react. But they can also switch up their pitches. So the batter, I mean, sign stealing's been a thing in baseball for a long time, but it used to just be like, there's a guy on second, he can tell the batter like what's coming up, stuff like that. And I think that's fine, honestly. Pitchers get mad about it, but there's a reason, because if the batter knows what pitch is coming up, then you take out one more advantage that the pitcher had, making it just a timing thing. Now, of course, these players, just because they know what's coming, what pitch is coming, does not mean they're automatically going to hit it, but it makes it a lot easier. The huge difference between a 76 mile per hour curveball and a 90 mile per hour fastball. And if you're expecting the 76 mile per hour curveball, you can react better. And if you're expecting a 90 per hour fastball, you can react to it better. You change your approach to the pitch depending on what pitch you think it's going to be. That's why pitchers are very adamant that this is the worst thing that ever happened in baseball, because Alex Wood, pitcher for the Dodgers, former pitcher, I'm not sure if he still pitched for the Dodgers, I forgot, I think he was a free agent this past off season, but he pitched for the Dodgers, and he said he'd rather face a guy on steroids than a guy that knows his signs. And that says a lot, because if you don't know a curveball is coming, then they're going to get you with a curveball. Or if they think a fastball is coming and you hit them with a changeup. These things matter in baseball, and that's why this is such a big deal. So, there you have it. Hopefully, I don't have to talk about this again, but there'll probably be an update before Tuesday or Thursday, so we'll find out. So, up next, I'll be talking about the NHL and how it seems like every single coach in the NHL has been fired this year. Stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So now that football season is coming to a close, I'm going to do what I usually do when football season comes to a close. I kind of switch my attention to hockey a little bit. I do like watching hockey. Hockey is a fun sport to watch, but it's just a lot. I mean, I can follow baseball, but baseball is more of like a relaxed thing, where hockey, I'm kind of stressed when I watch hockey. It's a stressful sport to watch. But, so big news in hockey this week, or not big news if you've been paying attention to the NHL at all this year, as it seems like every coach has been fired from the NHL. I think there's been a total of like 15 coaches fired, which that's half the league. Half the league have changed coaches just this year, which is crazy to me. I don't know if teams that just have super high expectations and these coaches aren't reaching them, or something like is just incredibly wrong with some coaches going on here. But the big story in hockey this week was the Las Vegas Golden Knights fired their coach Gerard Gallant. They fired him, which was kind of insane because he was the first coach of the team. The franchise started 3 years ago. They made the Stanley Cup their first year. He made this band of misfits kind of go to the Stanley Cup playoff, which is impressive on its own right. And then last year they made the second round of the playoffs, I believe, first round of the playoffs, and lost to the Sharks in 7 games, which they lost arguably because of a 5-minute major penalty that may or may not have happened. But bottom line is they blew a 4-0 lead to the Sharks during that major penalty. I mean, you can't win games if you're giving up 4 goals in 5 minutes. Just saying. Anyways, so Vegas Golden Knights, they fired this man, and it's kind of baffling because he's one of the better coaches in the league, and he, like I said, he led this band of misfits, the Las Vegas Knights, to a Stanley Cup, and also they made the playoffs last year. I mean, this man has not missed the playoffs. So it's very confusing. And then the more confusing thing is that they replaced him with Peter DeBoer, which, if you don't know who Peter DeBoer is, he was the San Jose Sharks head coach from last year. So there's a little history there, and he was fired from the Sharks earlier this year, literally like a month or two ago. So, I mean, the NHL is weird when it comes to coaches, because I feel like a coach will get fired, but then he'll get immediately hired somewhere else. I feel like there's not a lot of new coaches that come into the league, and maybe that's why 15 coaches have been fired, because they're a bunch of retreads that they're just trying to get rid of. So Peter DeBoer, he's a solid coach. He's a really good coach, especially in the NHL, especially in the Pacific Division, as some players have mentioned that's a big reason they're a big fan of Peter DeBoer. He coached for the Sharks for since 2012, I believe, so 6 or 7 years, and they made the playoffs every year. They always had a really good team every year. Usually played very hard. This year was kind of an exception, as the Sharks are kind of bottom of the barrel at the moment. So, yeah. So Peter DeBoer, my issue though is that the Sharks had about a 7-year window because they went to the Stanley Cup final in 2012, 13, one of the two. No, they went later than that. They went to the Stanley Cup final in 15 or 16. Trying to remember off the top of my head, but they went to the Stanley Cup final recently in the last 5 or 6 years, and they couldn't win. So everybody was like, oh, their window's closed because Joe Thornton's 40. Logan Couture is old too. He's like 32 or something like that. So yeah, Sharks are old. Then they go out and they get Evander Kane, and they get Carlson, and they look like a completely new team. So they look like a completely new team to kind of bring in another window. another window opens up. One window closes, another opens. And Peter DeBoer was supposed to lead the Sharks of trying to push the Sharks over the edge and win the Stanley Cup. Get one for Jumbo, get one for Couture, and yeah. But this year was kind of disappointing for the Sharks. Last year was kind of disappointing for the Sharks as they, like I said, they had the 7-game series against the Vegas Knights, which should not, the Sharks looked terrible that entire series. Just so you know, they won a couple games in between, but the Knights were up 3-2, I believe. And then, up 3-2. And then that game happened and the Sharks pulled out a series victory, but then they got absolute thrashed in the next round of the playoffs. I forgot against who, but they I think it was the Blues. So the Stanley Cup winners, the Blues. So the Sharks kind of have a history of disappointing with great talent. They've kind of been doing it their entire existence. So can you really blame Peter DeBoer for that? I mean, you still can, because the Sharks had pretty talented teams for the past couple of years and kind of did nothing. Carlson always injured, so I mean, you can't really do that. Vander Kane has some issues, but he's overall a pretty good player. But so Peter DeBoer, he's with the Vegas Knights now. I don't really know how it's going to go, but we'll see. It's going to be interesting. One thing I saw is that the Vegas Knights owner said that Gerard just wasn't getting the best out of his players, and they needed someone who can get the best out of the players. And I was immediately so you hired Peter DeBoer, who is known for wasting talent at San Jose. So that's just my opinion, of course, but it's going to be interesting how it works out. It's going to be very interesting. And it kind of makes the Vegas San Jose rivalry a little stronger, because those two teams have had a rivalry recently. They kind of hate each other. And if you watched the Stanley Cup playoffs last year, if you watched the Sharks versus the Knights, it was a bloodbath, to say the least. I mean, everybody knew that something, it quite literally was a bloodbath, because one guy for the Sharks had his head busted open. And that caused a 5-minute major, and Vegas fans are still kind of mad about that, and San Jose fans made shirts of it with a 5-minute major and all that. So there's kind of a rivalry building up here. These two teams really don't like each other, and I really don't know why. It just kind of happened. I guess it's because Vegas, they're in the same division, of course, in the Pacific. I guess Vegas just thinks that San Jose is the top dog, so they picked with them. Vegas's strategy for the past couple of years, especially under Gerard, was to kind of bully the other team, which kind of worked against San Jose, because Peter DeBoer doesn't really coach for that. He coaches more just X's and O's instead of just bully people into the ground. So Gerard was all about the bullying, all about yelling and being aggressive and stuff like that. So it's going to be it's an interesting tone shift there between Vegas and San Jose. So once again, it's going to be interesting how it works out. I really don't know how it's going to work out. It's just such a interesting move. And then you add in the fact that this is the 15th NHL coach to be fired this year. And I think 2 of the coaches that have been fired have already been rehired by another team. So really, what is going on in the NHL? If someone could give me that answer, please let me know. Because 15 coaches being fired in the same season is bonkers to me. Why is that a thing? That should never happen. It should be 5, 7 tops. There should never be, especially in the middle of the season. It's not like this is the off season, it's Black Monday or anything like that, like in the NFL. But no, it's literally middle of the season. We are firing our coach in the middle of the season. We haven't even reached the All-Star break, and 15 coaches have been fired. Gerard was the coach of the Pacific Division in the All-Star game, so is he still going to be the coach? Or are they going to get Peter DeBoer to replace him? So that would be interesting to get Peter DeBoer to replace him, because then you got Sharks players and Knights players. But anyway, so the NHL is just very confusing this year. I haven't really been keeping up. Like I said, I usually don't start keeping up until after football season ends, so I'll look into it in about 2 weeks after the Super Bowl. I'll look more into it later. But yeah, 15 coaches have been fired. Bonkers. Anyways, when we will get back, I will be talking about the Conor McGregor fight, or, barely what I saw of it.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. So which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
So I just want to preface this by saying that I did not watch UFC for 249 or whatever it is last night, as I made a mistake. I had a miscalculation. So I was going to watch at least probably the last a little bit of it. I just wanted to watch. I'm not interested in MMA. I already mentioned that in the last podcast. I'm not interested in it at all. I think it's a interesting sport that I can understand why people like it. It's kind of like boxing, except it's a little bit more extreme. Just people bloodying each other and beating each other up. So I understand why people like that. I personally have some reservations about it. Not because of the beating up thing. I don't really care about that. It's just the hype for it kind of doesn't match what you get. It doesn't match the product. So, and I'll get into it a little later. So I was going to watch it. I was going to at least watch the McGregor Cowboy fight. So it's 11 o'clock. Things doesn't start until 10 because, people don't have to sleep or anything. I mean, it's a Saturday night, whatever. But so it doesn't start until 10. The main card doesn't start until 10. They had a bunch of prelims beforehand. I didn't watch any of them. But the main card starts at 10, so I'm figuring it's okay, so that starts at 10, then the McGregor fight will start at maybe midnight or something like that. But I went to sleep at 12:30 and I never got any notification about McGregor, so I'm assuming the match started at 1 o'clock in the morning or some garbage like that. But I wake up, I get notifications that McGregor knocked him out in 40 seconds or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then I go on Reddit. I go to the MMA subreddit because, why not? And then first thing they have is McGregor versus Cerrone. And it's literally just the whole clip of the fight. And it's just 40 seconds long. So I'm sitting there and it's oh, okay. So awesome. So I forgot to say, I was going to watch it last night, no matter how late it was. I was going to watch it last night. I have ESPN Plus, so I assumed, and then this is my fault for assuming, I suppose, I assumed that if you have ESPN Plus, you just get it. I thought it was one of those things where you just turn it on, you have ESPN Plus, you pay the $5 a month, and you got it. I thought that's what it was. Turns out you still have to pay the pay-per-view fee of $65, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not paying $65. And now that the big fight's over, I'm glad I didn't do that. Now, I understand that the $65 is for more than just the McGregor fight. I understand there are a bunch of other fights, but on that main card. But let's be honest here, to a casual fan, the only match they care about is McGregor-Cerrone. So, and the fact that fight lasted 40 seconds makes me think that I'm glad I didn't spend that much money. So, here's my issue with the UFC. Here's my issue with MMA. I think it's as athletic as you can get. You have some real monsters, real machines going into that octagon or going into whatever promotion, whatever. You have these. They're built. They're athletic. They're fighters. They're ready to lay their life, their face, their body on the line for people's entertainment and for their pride and to win money. That's basically how it is, and I respect that. I really do. I respect that. I respect. I respect McGregor, even though he's kind of a nuisance to society. To be honest, I respect Cerrone. I I remember when I was younger, I kind of got into UFC a little bit with Chuck Taylor, Iceman Chuck Taylor, and Anderson Silva, who is still fighting, by the way. Anderson Silva, what the heck, man? I used to watch him because UFC was on, what was it? Oh, man, Spike TV. It was on, like, they would have, like, weekly shows, and they would, like, recap fights, or they'll show, like, full fights on Spike. So I actually used to watch that a little bit. It was interesting. I was a big wrestling fan. I kind of still am. I don't really follow any wrestling, though, now. So I was a big WWE fan when I was younger, and I went through that phase where, like, oh, God, it's fake. Oh, no. So I went to UFC because it was a little more realistic. But here's my issue with the UFC, though. With WWE, when you pay $60, you're at least guaranteed it to be entertaining. You're guaranteed for a fight that will last more than 5 minutes and will be entertaining. You'll have stupid storylines, like dumbass storylines, but it's still entertaining. At the end of the day, you're entertained, and no matter how stupid it is, like if I get WrestleMania, if I pay for WrestleMania, which I don't because I have the WWE Network, but if you pay $60+ for WrestleMania, that's a 5-hour long show. You're at least going to get good matches if you're watching it for the matches. Even though the matches are technically not real, it's still going to be entertaining. UFC, on the other hand, you pay $60 and you don't know what you're going to get because it's actually real, and and that's why people like it, because it's real. But my issue is you have all this hype for Cowboy Cerrone versus Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor coming back to the octagon. How is he going to do? And then it ends in 40 seconds. Cowboy Cerrone doesn't even get any offense in. And like, I can speak on this because I actually watched the full fight because, like I said, I saw the clip on Reddit the night after, the morning after. I literally woke up this morning, I looked at my phone, I watched it. It was 40 seconds long, so I watched it, and it was over. You can tell also that the ref didn't want it to be over that fast because Cowboy was done. He was cooked. He was done. And then the ref was just like, oh, hold on. All right, it's over. We waited. He should have ended that about 10 seconds earlier because McGregor's just pounding his face in, and yeah. So that's my issue with the UFC. It's you have these big matches that are hyped, but sometimes they never live up to hype. I don't think I've seen a single match live up to the hype. I'm really trying to think about it. I'm trying to think of any UFC match that was actually hype enough for me to tune into it, and it actually lived up to the hype. Because I've seen Lesnar fights, I've seen CM Punk fights, because, the wrestling thing. Brock Lesnar fights actually kind of live up to the hype. Brock Lesnar fights are pretty good. Usually they're pretty good. Conor McGregor, though, I mean, these guys get hyped up because they knock people out in like 30 seconds. And then I'm supposed to sit here and want to watch him knock someone out in 30 seconds for $60? No, that's not how that works for me. That's not how I want to spend my night. I don't want to pay $60, watch a bunch of matches, a bunch of fights I don't care about that are probably better than the fight that I do care about. And then when the fight that I do care about comes around at 1 o'clock in the morning and it sucks and it's only 40 seconds long, and then I'm just sitting there and it's like, cool. Great night. Wasted my night. And no offense to UFC fans. Of course, we have an MMA podcast here on the GSMC podcast network, and you can listen to them. They'll actually probably talk very really about it. I'm just giving my personal opinion. I'm not saying anything about the actual integrity of the UFC or anything. I just personally don't see the hype of it, and I personally don't understand paying $60 for a 40-second fight. Now, going into the actual fight, I mean, McGregor started with some shoulder strikes. He was striking the man with a shoulder. He broke the man's nose with a shoulder. Can you imagine that? You're about to fight someone and they just start swinging with their shoulder? It was crazy. They kind of locked up, and then McGregor just kind of like hit him with his shoulder and broke his nose, apparently. And then he got a nice kick to the face, and then that was pretty much it. There's not much analysis I can do on a 40-second fight. So there you have it. It's over. We can move on. McGregor, he of course won, as we discussed. McGregor won, so he's probably going to get put up in another big matchup. I was seeing that he might get put in a rematch against Khabib. So that would be entertaining. I will definitely not spend $60 to watch that. I will watch it illegally somewhere. No, I'll watch it the next morning. Sorry, when it's 40 seconds and it's over. So yeah, there's UFC. That's all the UFC content you're going to get. You're probably not going to get me to talk about UFC again until Conor McGregor fights again. So if you're a UFC fan, sorry that I kind of trashed your sport. I didn't mean to. I really didn't mean to. I'm just kind of giving my opinion on how I felt about how the fight went and how all that stuff went down. So when we come back, we'll be talking about LSU losing literally every piece and why that makes Clemson look better.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
What is going on right now in LSU country. So first off, like as I'm recording on Sunday, so literally just 6 days ago, LSU won the national championship, and they beat a really good Clemson team. They capped off one of the greatest offensive seasons of all time. Joe Burrow is in the contention for one of the greatest individual seasons of all time in college football history. Some people rivaling it with Cam Newton, which is insane because Cam Newton had less weapons than Joe Burrow had, but that's a discussion for a different day. So Joe Burrow, one of the greatest statistical seasons of all time, with 6,000 passing yards or something like that, and then of course 60 touchdowns. So that's crazy. And then LSU had OBJ making a fool of himself all over the field before, during, and after the game. During the game, he was trying to get the band to play some song. So he stole the megaphone from the band director and tried to get that going. And then after the game, he was given money handshakes to the players on the field. He was just dapping them up with money. It was Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow went on a podcast. LSU made a statement saying it was fake money. It was just Monopoly money because it looked like Monopoly money when you watch the video. It doesn't. But LSU made that statement, and then Joe Burrow goes on. Pardon my take. Podcast, and he's just like, "Nah, it's real. I'm not a student athlete anymore, so I don't care." It's like, dude, but your school cares. I know he doesn't really care. I mean, that's gotta suck, because he spent this whole year saying, is like, oh, LSU, you've accepted me and I'm part of LSU community now. And then he just kind of throws you right under the bus once he's done, because Jesus. So there's an eternal investigation going on for LSU there. But then you go into the locker room, you got everybody smoking cigars, and there's a security officer trying to put the cigars out, which I don't really, this story is such a non-story to me. The cigar part is, OBJ then slaps him on the buttocks, and he got charged, and there's a warrant out for his arrest, which I think, the officer is no longer going to press charges on that one. I think I read last night. So, what a whirlwind of emotions just on the day of the game. So the cigar thing was kind of dumb. It's technically in law that you cannot smoke indoors in New Orleans in a public space. However, these guys just won a national championship. You know what people do after they win titles in sports? They smoke cigars. It's just kind of a thing that happens. Joe Burrow was doing it, and it was posted all over social media because it was an epic video of him just smoking a cigar. It was a really cool video. Made him look badass. But, yeah, I mean, don't see an officer telling him to put it out. The officer was also checking Gatorade bottles for liquor, which I'm not really sure why they would. Do they sneak liquor in their backpacks? Like, what? That part was crazy to me, because why would. These are football players. Like, it's Gatorade, dude. Like, come on. They're not trying to hide anything. You think these dudes were just taking swigs of it at halftime and then came out and still won by 20 points? No, that's not. That's stupid. So that's just the night of the game. The very next day, Joe Brady, the architect of this LSU offense that everybody's been praising, it's the greatest offense in college football history, supposedly. So he immediately leaves. He was only there for 1 year. He was an offense assistant for the Saints, and then he got hired by LSU because LSU went to visit the Saints to talk some football, and they liked Joe Brady, so they hired him on as the passing coordinator, and now he is on to offense coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. Then Joe Burrow, he was already declared because he doesn't have any eligibility left, but then Justin Jefferson, Edwards Helaire, Thaddeus Moss, and literally I feel like the entirety of their just a lot of people declared for the NFL draft. So I mean, I saw there was a guard, there was a bunch of guys on defense. So you have these guys declaring for the draft. You're losing most of your key offensive pieces. You still have Jamar Chase, which he is better than Justin Jefferson in my opinion. So that's not a big deal. You still have Jamar Chase. So then this week, Dave Aranda, the defensive coordinator for LSU, he leaves LSU to become the head coach of the Baylor Bears. And I'm bringing all of this up because there's been a lot of comparisons between Coach Orgeron, Coach O, and Dabo Swinney of the Clemson Tigers. There's been a lot of comparisons between the two because they're both kind of CEO types. They both had kind of weird journeys to get to where they are, as Dabo was a real estate agent for a couple years, and then he got signed by, he got hired by Tommy Bowden to be receivers coach, and he was receivers coach for like 7 years, and then became the head coach. Then Coach Orgeron, he was interim coach for like he was head coach at Ole Miss, where he was kind of a laughingstock, and then he went to USC, he was Southern Cal, where he was the interim coach, and he did actually a pretty good job, I feel like, but he kind of got mocked there as well because of his voice, because of his antics, stuff he did, and then he gets a job with LSU. He gets the head coaching job at LSU after Les Miles leaves. So he's kind of the perfect fit for LSU, which I feel like if LSU had any other coach right now, it would not have worked out the way it did. But the main comparison here is that they both were unlikely head coaches, and they're both CEO types. So, but here's one thing. Coach O wins the national championship after a fantastic year. Loses passing coordinator, the guy who revamped your offense, defensive coordinator, the guy who made your defense better as the season went on, which was crazy to me because I remember going into the playoffs, I was kind of like, oh man, Oklahoma's going to kind of throw all over them because, I mean, yeah, because it's Oklahoma's offense, but they put a stop to Oklahoma's offense, and then they came in against Clemson and did fantastic against Clemson's offense. So that defense got better as the year went on because they had some really bad games defensively. So the defense went better as the year went on. Then he goes to Baylor. Meanwhile, Clemson, not only is Travis Etienne coming back, but Clemson hasn't lost an assistant to a different team since 2016. They lost Jeff Scott. Jeff Scott was a co-offensive coordinator. Now we're not offensive coordinator. But that can be seen as kind of the same as Joe Brady, I feel like. So Jeff Scott leaves. He's the first assistant that leaves in 2016. Clemson is going to return with Brent Venables still. They're going to return with Tony Elliott, their offensive coordinator, and they're going to up Brandon Streeter, who's their quarterback coach, to co-offensive coordinator or passing coordinator, whatever you want to call it. And then you of course still have Dabo Swinney. You still have Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne's coming back for some reason. You're losing Isaiah Simmons, but you're getting the number one recruiting class of the in the world, in the country coming in to kind of reload there. So I think it's just a testament to how there's a difference between building a program that is sustained and going to last and just building a team that's going to win the national championship. There is a huge difference between those two. LSU built a perfect team to win a national championship, but they can't keep the team. Clemson built a perfect team to win a national championship and is able to sustain that team long enough to win multiple and keep going. I will not be shocked if Clemson's in Miami next year for the national championship, playing probably Alabama, to be honest, because Alabama's the only other team that's kind of on that level where they just keep getting new players. And I mean, Alabama's kind of different because Alabama lose coaches every year, but that's just because of the Alabama stigma. So Alabama's the only other team on that level, in my opinion. I mean, every year, Ohio State is up there as well. Ohio State's up there as well. But basically, you're not going to get rid of Clemson, Ohio State, or Alabama just because LSU won 1 year out of, the rest of the time. But anyways, that's it for me. Thank you for listening to the Sunday show. Hope you enjoy those NFL games. It's Championship Sunday. Hope you didn't spend $60 on the UFC Pay Per View last night. And follow GSMC Sports on Twitter, on Facebook, and follow GSMC on all your social platforms. Rate, review, like us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcast, wherever you're listening to my voice at this moment. Just like us and rate us and give us reviews. You can follow me at Strickland_Josh if you want to complain about my UFC views, if you want to complain about any of my views, if you want to complain that I called Chuck Liddell Chuck Taylor earlier, because I just realized I made that mistake. So thank you for listening, everybody, and hope you have a great Sunday, and I will talk to you on Tuesday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.